the silence has shattered. In an unprecedented move, King Charles has broken royal tradition to send a thunderous warning, not to a foreign power, but to his own Prime Minister. Keir Starmer and the Labour Party have been operating in the shadows, crafting a dangerous, secretive blueprint to quietly pull Britain back into the grip of the European Union. Now, the King, long restrained by constitutional duty, has stepped forward, subtly but unmistakably, to sound the alarm. His words, though carefully veiled, carry a weight that cannot be ignored. This isn't politics as usual. This is a battle for Britain's soul. What secret has the King uncovered? And why has he chosen this exact moment to strike back? For centuries, the British monarchy has stood above politics, silent, symbolic and restrained. But not today. Behind the towering gates of Buckingham Palace, something extraordinary has happened. King Charles, known for his discipline and discretion, has sent a message, carefully calculated, deliberately phrased and deeply troubling. Those closest to the palace have confirmed what many suspected. The King is gravely concerned about the direction of Keir Starmer's government, especially regarding what insiders are now calling a stealth campaign to undo Brexit. It began with whispers, private concerns voiced during discreet meetings with senior advisers and trusted allies. The King, according to palace insiders, had been briefed about a series of high-level negotiations taking place not in the public eye, but deep within the corridors of Whitehall. These meetings, masked under the language of diplomacy and cooperation, revealed a far more sinister objective. Starmer's team, it appears, has been quietly working with EU officials to align the UK's legal and economic systems with Brussels, without parliamentary votes, without referendums, and without public knowledge. This wasn't what the British people voted for in 2016. The referendum was clear. Leave meant leave. Sovereignty was not a bargaining chip. Yet under Starmer's leadership, Britain's hard-won independence is being dismantled piece by piece. And King Charles, who ascended to the throne as a symbol of unity and national identity, can no longer watch silently as the nation's will is eroded behind closed doors. His concern reached a boiling point during a recent private reception with senior military and constitutional figures. Though his words were measured, their meaning was unmistakable. He spoke of the need to protect national identity, of honouring the people's voice, and most strikingly, of guarding against quiet reversals of democratic decisions. Those in the room understood. The King was not speaking in generalities. He was sending a clear signal to the Starmer government. Starmer, of course, denies everything. He insists that his policies are about rebuilding trust with Europe, fostering trade, and modernising Britain's economy. But every move tells a different story. New agreements with the EU are being signed at record pace, each one drawing Britain closer to the very regulatory frameworks it fought to escape. The King sees this, and he knows the danger. He understands that once sovereignty is surrendered, in silence it rarely returns without chaos, the most alarming part. These backdoor deals are being crafted without a single vote from the public, no referendum, no public debate, just closed-door meetings and soft-spoken promises to foreign technocrats. To the monarchy, this is more than a political disagreement. It is a constitutional crisis in the making. The Crown's role may be symbolic, but its responsibility to protect the nation's unity remains unshakable. And Charles, in this moment of quiet rebellion, has chosen duty over silence. As Britain approaches yet another crossroads, the question now looms large. Will the public awaken in time to stop what's unfolding? Or will they, distracted by daily struggles and media spin, realise too late that the Brexit they fought for is being dismantled before their very eyes? What if Brexit was never really safe? While millions of Britons celebrated reclaiming control, believing the struggle was finally over, Labour's leadership had already begun laying the groundwork for a quiet reversal. In the shadows of Westminster, beyond the roar of public speeches and media headlines, a meticulously orchestrated campaign was being developed, one not to confront Brexit openly, but to smother it slowly, silently, and irreversibly. This is what King Charles saw taking shape, a return to the EU not by referendum, but by stealth. Under Keir Starmer, the Labour Party's public messaging has remained careful and controlled. Starmer knows full well that outright opposition to Brexit is political suicide in key working-class constituencies. So instead, his strategy has been subtle. His government has begun realigning British laws and regulations with Brussels standards, starting with trade, but inching toward energy, immigration, digital policy, and even legal oversight. At first glance, these appear to be minor adjustments, harmless reforms to rebuild post-Brexit cooperation. But beneath the surface, they signal something far more ominous: the reversal of Brexit without the consent of the people. One of the earliest indicators came from renewed discussions about rejoining the EU customs union, talks which the Starmer government initially denied, only to later admit were on the table for economic stability. These talks, according to leaks from senior civil servants, are part of a broader plan to reintegrate the UK into the EU's economic system in phases. Phase 1 involves aligning regulatory standards, which has already begun. Phase 2 is restoring freedom of movement for key industries under the guise of labour mobility schemes. Phase 3, full-scale political and legal integration masters strategic alignment, but it doesn't stop there. New reports have revealed that Starmer's cabinet has held multiple off-record meetings with EU representatives in Brussels. Meetings attended not only by diplomats, but by former Remain campaigners and unelected bureaucrats now serving as special high advisors. These meetings have been kept far from the public eye, with no minutes published and no press allowed. According to inside sources, topics discussed included long-term strategies to re-enter the EU market fully, explore judicial cooperation with the European Court of Justice, and create new joint UK-EU regulatory bodies, all steps that mirror the frameworks of EU membership. This isn't diplomacy. It's subversion of democracy, of sovereignty, of the very idea that the British people should have the final say on their nation's future. And King Charles knows it. He has watched as Labour's language has shifted from respecting Brexit to making Brexit work, a phrase designed to disarm critics while allowing reintegration to proceed unchecked. The King has access to intelligence briefings the public never sees. He knows what's being negotiated behind closed doors, and what he's seen has disturbed him so deeply that he could no longer remain silent. Adding to the tension is the role of the civil service. Deep within the machinery of government, many senior civil servants remain ideologically committed to EU membership. These individuals have been quietly supporting Starmer's strategy, drafting legislation, proposing frameworks, and even lobbying sympathetic members of the Lords to push back against Brexit-related reforms. With Parliament distracted by economic issues and foreign policy debates, these backroom operators have been quietly steering policy toward Brussels, one document at a time. And then there's the media silence. Most mainstream outlets, heavily influenced by pro-EU sentiment and Labour sympathies, have refused to cover the story. Instead, they distract with scandals, celebrity gossip, and surface-level coverage of trade discussions. They downplay the warnings, dismiss critics as conspiracy theorists, and paint the King's subtle interventions as harmless tradition. But make no mistake, his words were deliberate. His warning was precise. He chose to speak because what's unfolding is not politics as usual. It is a breach of trust, a betrayal of millions, and a threat to Britain's independence. The King's concern is not partisan, it's constitutional. If Starmer succeeds in slowly realigning Britain with the EU, without consulting the people, without a vote, without a referendum, then the democratic process itself will have been violated. This is what Charles fears. Not just a reversal of Brexit, but the dismantling of the people's voice through bureaucratic deceit. The monarchy, though, restrained, exists to preserve the integrity of the nation. And in this moment of creeping authoritarianism, the Crown has sounded the alarm. The King's fierce warning did not come out of nowhere. It emerged at a moment when the undercurrents of resistance against Starmer's secret anti-Brexit plot have reached a boiling point. Across the country, signs of public frustration are mounting. The very voters who delivered Brexit in 2016 feel betrayed and alarmed. They see the creeping policies and behind-the-scenes negotiations that undermine their decision, and their patience is wearing thin. This growing wave of dissatisfaction is beginning to shape a new political landscape, one that threatens to destabilise not only Labour, but the entire British political establishment. In Parliament, a faction of Labour MPs, once loyal to Starmer, are beginning to question the EE leadership's approach. These dissenters, many representing constituencies where Brexit was overwhelmingly supported, are now openly voicing their unease. They warn that ignoring the democratic will risks catastrophic backlash at the ballot box, not just in Labour's heartlands, but nationwide. Some have even started clandestine talks with Conservative backbenchers and Brexit-supporting independents to forge a cross-party alliance aimed at preserving Brexit's gains. This rare cooperation across party lines highlights the urgency of the threat and the recognition that Starmer's strategy endangers Britain's sovereignty, regardless of political affiliation. But the rebellion extends far beyond Parliament. Former Brexit campaign leaders, who once fought tooth and nail to secure the referendum victory, are mobilising once again. Groups like Leave Means Leave and other grassroots organisations have intensified their efforts, organising rallies, petitions, and social media campaigns aimed at exposing Starmer's covert plans. Their message is clear. Brexit is not a fleeting policy change, but a foundational shift in British identity and governance that must be defended at all costs. Their activism has reignited national conversations, challenging the complacency of the political elite, and bringing Brexit's future back to the forefront of public debate. Even some within the Conservative Party, historically fractured over Europe, are rallying around the King's warning. Tory hardliners, frustrated by their party's recent compromises on EU relations, see an opportunity to reclaim the Brexit promise. These MPs are pushing their leadership to take a tougher stance, demanding more transparency about EU negotiations, and stronger commitments to uphold Brexit legislation. The internal divisions this has sparked within the Conservative Party threaten to deepen, with some factions openly accusing the government of abandoning the referendum's mandate. This infighting increases political instability at a time when unity is most needed. Meanwhile, the media landscape has grown more complex. Although much of the mainstream press remains silent or sympathetic to Labour's repositioning, independent outlets and online platforms have seized the moment to highlight the King's warning and the secretive dealings behind Brexit's dilution. Investigative journalists are uncovering documents, whistleblowers are stepping forward, and viral exposés are putting pressure on the government to respond. This surge in alternative media coverage has empowered ordinary citizens to demand accountability, bringing new energy to a movement that many feared was fading into history. Yet despite this growing resistance, Starmer's government continues to operate with remarkable stealth. The use of legal technicalities, ambiguous language, and bureaucratic red tape has made it difficult for opposition forces to mount an effective challenge. Parliamentary committees have been given limited access to crucial documents, while freedom of information requests have been stalled or rejected outright. The government's narrative remains focused on economic necessity and global cooperation, cleverly masking the reality of a slow EU re-entry. This calculated obfuscation has frustrated MPs and campaigners alike, who warn that time is running out. The King's intervention has also stirred controversy and division within the monarchy itself. Traditionally, the Crown remains politically neutral, intervening only in constitutional crises or to uphold fundamental principles. Charles's decision to issue a public warning has shocked many royal observers. It reflects not only his deep concern for the country's democratic health, but also the extraordinary nature of the threat. His speech has reignited debates about the role of the monarchy in modern Britain, with some praising his courage and others criticising the perceived politicisation of the Crown. This internal debate mirrors the broader national crisis, how to balance tradition with the rapidly shifting political realities. As the resistance builds momentum, the stakes have never been higher. The coming months will be critical in determining whether Starmer's secret, anti-Brexit plot is exposed and halted or allowed to proceed unchecked. The actions taken now will shape the political landscape for years to come, influencing Britain's sovereignty, its relationship with Europe, and the trust between government and citizens. Section 4 will delve into the specific legal battles, parliamentary manoeuvres, and public campaigns that are emerging as key battlegrounds in this fight, and why this struggle is about much more than Brexit alone. The escalating conflict surrounding the secret anti-Brexit plot has spilled over into the courts and Parliament, creating a tense and high-stakes legal and political drama. As public outrage grows and more evidence surfaces, legal experts, campaigners and MPs have turned to the judiciary as a last line of defence to protect the Brexit mandate. Multiple legal challenges have been launched to expose the government's covert deals and to demand transparency. These cases focus on alleged breaches of the Brexit withdrawal agreement and question whether Starmer's government has overstepped its authority by effectively seeking to reverse the referendum without public consent. The courts have been flooded with petitions. In parallel, public campaigns are ramping up their efforts to amplify pressure on politicians and institutions. Mass demonstrations are being organised in key cities, with thousands rallying to demand that the Brexit vote be honoured without compromise. Social media campaigns have gone viral, leveraging hashtags and viral videos to spread awareness and rally support. Petitions demanding a second referendum on any EU re-entry agreements have gained millions of signatures, illustrating the depth of public concern. These grassroots movements have become a powerful force, making it politically costly for elected officials to ignore the issue. Amid this chaos, the King's warning continues to echo as a moral backdrop to the unfolding drama. His intervention has galvanised legal activists and MPs alike, providing a rare moment of clarity and urgency. It serves as a reminder that the crisis is not simply political, but constitutional, touching on the very principles that underpin British democracy. As Section 5 will reveal, the impact of this struggle extends beyond legal and parliamentary arenas, affecting international relations, economic